Welcome dear student and Jai Swaminarayan. In the previous video, we were discuss about the carbon compounds. Carbon atom join with the another carbon atoms in a large chain structure to form a large chain structure, branch structure, and carbon atom join with the other carbon atom to form a ring structure. So very large number of the carbon compounds formed by the in the form of the chain structure, in the form of the branch structure, in the form of the ring structure. Meanwhile, we were also discussed the when the carbon atoms join with the other atoms like hydrogen atoms to form a methane, ethane, propane, hexane, right? That all the things, right? If there are one carbon atoms joined with the other four hydrogen atoms, to it forms the methane, right? So carbon atom joined with the hydrogen atoms and hydrocarbons form. So hydrocarbons are a carbon compounds with the carbon atom joined with the hydrogen atom. So in the previous video, we were discussed about the hydrocarbons, different types of the hydrocarbons, saturated hydrocarbons, unsaturated hydrocarbons. When the carbon atom joined with the other carbon atom with the single bond, it is a saturated hydrocarbon. When the carbon atom joined with the other carbon atom with the double covalent bond, triple covalent bond, it is a unsaturated hydrocarbon, right? So when the carbon atom join with the other carbon atom and the hydrogen atom, right, alkane, alkene and alkyne forms, right? That are the different types of the homologous series, right? So in the previous video we were discussed different types of the homologous series, right? Alkane. So if the carbon atom join with the other carbon atom and the hydrogen atom with the single bond, it's a alkene, right? The nomenclature of the alkane is, if there is only one carbon atom, it is called the methane, two carbon atom ethane, three carbon atom propane, four carbon atom butane, 5 carbon atom pentane, 6 carbon atom hexane, right? So the chain structure, when the carbon atom join with the other carbon atom in a chain structure, right, to form the alkene. When the carbon atoms makes a covalent bond with the other carbon atom, if there is a double covalent bond or a triple covalent bond, right, it's a alkene and the alkane, methane, ethene, propane, butane, right, like this. So if there is a two, see, double covalent bond between the two carbon atoms, right, it's a alkene. And if there is a triple covalent bond between the two atoms, it's a alkyne. So dear student, up till now you have not seen the previous video. So see the previous video so that you can easily understand how the carbon compounds forms, right, and how we can name the carbon compounds. Except that we were discussed about a carbon atoms makes a covalent bond with the halo group atoms like a chloro, fluoro, bromo, and the carbon halide halogen group of the carbon compounds form. So in that functional group, the carbon compounds makes a covalent bond with the different functional group like a halo group. So halocarbon compounds are formed. Then other groups, aldehyde group, alcohol group, ketone group, carboxylic acid group, right? So this way, the very large number of the carbon compounds are formed. So dear student, how we can name this type of the carbon compound? Simply nomenclature of the alkane, alkene and alkyne we were discussed in the previous video, or nomenclature of the carbon compound with the halo group, alcohol group we were discussed in the previous video. Just brief review of how the name nomenclature of the carbon compound can be done, we will discuss in this video, and then we will discuss the chemical properties of the carbon compound. So dear student, naming of the carbon compound, it is a very important point, right? So let us start with the nomenclature of the carbon compounds or the name of the carbon compounds, how we can form. So simple, we know that alkane, alkene and alkyne. If there is a one carbon atom is there, it's a methane, right? If two carbon atoms, ethane. If three carbon atoms are there, propane. If four carbon atoms are there, butane. Five carbon atoms are there, pentane, and six carbon atoms are there, hexane, right? But simply the name of the compound in the homologous series are based on the name of the basic carbon chain. What are the basic carbon chain? In the basic carbon chain, if there is only one carbon atom, right, it's a name start with the methane. If there is two carbon atom, it's a name start with the ethane. If there is three carbon atom, it's a name with the propane. If four carbon atoms, it's a name with the butane. Five carbon atoms, it's a name with the pentane. If six carbon atoms, it's a name with the hexane, right? So simply, the name of the carbon compounds in the homologous series are based on the name of the basic carbon chain, modified by the prefix. Prefix before prefix and suffix phrase after, indicating the nature of the functional group. Then how the functional group are added to the, which type of the functional group are added to this carbon chain. So according to the functional group, we may modify the carbon chain, name of the carbon compound, basic carbon chain with the some prefix and with the some suffix, right? So how, like this, if the alcohol group, right, OH functional group are joined with the carbon compound, and if there is only one carbon atom is there, so CH3OH, right, the name of this carbon compound is a methanol. For one atom, that is the methane. And if the functional group alcohol, the we take a suffix OL, right, that is the methanol. Similarly, two carbon atom, ethanol, propanol, butanol, that we were discussed in the previous video. So dear student, up till now you have not seen the previous video. See the previous video so that you can easily understand how the nomenclature of the carbon compound can be done, right? Secondly, instead of this alcohol group, if there is a ketone group are there, carboxylic group, right, carboxylic group are there, C double bond OH, methanoic acid, ethanoic acid, propanoic acid, butanoic acid. This way we can do the uh, nomenclature of the carbon compound. So there are some steps to name the carbon compound, or the naming of the carbon compound can be done with the help of the some steps. So you need to remember this way how the naming of the carbon compounds done. First point is that identify the number of carbon compounds in the compound, number of the carbon atoms in the carbon compound. So first step is that identify the number of carbon atoms in the carbon compound, right? A compound having a one carbon atom would have a name methane. Compound have a two carbon atoms would have a name ethane. Compounds have a three carbon atoms, name propane. Compound have a four carbon atoms, name butane. Compounds have a five carbon atom, name pentane. Compound have a six carbon atom, name hexane, right, this way. So first point is that identify the number of carbon atoms. If there is one carbon atom, methane, two carbon atom, propane, three carbon atom, propane, four carbon atom, butane, like this, right? So first of all, identify the number of carbon atom in the compound, right? Next step, in case of the functional group is present, it is indicated in the name of the compound with either prefix or suffix, right? So second step, identify which type of the functional group is present in the carbon compound. So and indicate the name of the carbon compound with either prefix or a suffix, right? So if there is a halo group, right, chlorine atom, functional chlorine atom is connected with in this present in the carbon compound. If the chlorine atom is present in the carbon compound, its a name start with the chloro, right? And if there is only one carbon atom, its a name is a chloromethane, right? Like this. Like this, if the carbon atom are makes a covalent bond with the hydrogen atom, single covalent bond, and carbon atom is connected with the chlorine atom. So here the functional group, first one is the identify the number of carbon atom. So here in this structure only single carbon atom is there. So it's a name would we have a methane, right? And functional group, which functional group is present in this chlorine, right? Hello functional group is present, so its a name is prefixed by a chloromethane, right? If another functional group is present, the name is modified by either prefix or a suffix. Now third point is that if the name of the functional group is to be given as a suffix and the suffix of the functional group begins with the vowel A, E, I, O, U, then the name of the carbon chain is modified by deleting a final E and adding the appropriate suffix. For example, if the 3 carbon atom chain is there with a ketone functional group, right? So if there is a 3 carbon atom chain of the 3 carbon atom, that is the name with the propane, right? And with a ketone group is present in the chain of the carbon atom, would be named in the following way. So 3 carbon atom, that means the propane, right? It ends with the E, right? And the functional group ketone, ketone functional group has a suffix O-N-E, on, right? So here we deleting this E, final E, and add a suffix O-N-E, it's a name with the propanol, right? So the name of the carbon compound with the 3 carbon chain with the ketone group, right, is the propanol. So 3 carbon chain, that means the propane, right? And the suffix of the ketone group is a ONE. So if we here we deleting this E and add a suffix, right? So propane on, that is the propanol. So understand how the name of the carbon compound form, right? Similarly, if we consider the 4 carbon chain with the ketone group, right? 4 carbon chain, that is the butane, right? Plus on, that is the butanol. 5 carbon chain is that pentanol. 6 carbon chain hexanol with the ketone group. If the other functional group are there, alcohol group are there, so we were discussed previously. If the alcohol group are there, ethanol, propanol, butanol, like this, right? Now, next point is that if the carbon chain is unsaturated, that means if there is a double covalent bond or a triple covalent bond between the carbon chain, right? Then the final A and E in the name of the carbon is substituted by a in or ine, right? If there is a double bond between the in the carbon chain, its a name is modified by in, or it's a if there is a triple bond between the carbon chain, its a name is modified by ine, right? For example, if there is a double bond in a ethane group, 2 carbon chain, right? So carbon carbon double bond. So here if the carbon carbon double bond is there, so double bond 2 carbon atom, that is the ethane, but here double bond between the 2 carbon atom, that's the name is modified by a ethene, right? Or if there is a triple bond, its a name is a ethyne. Similarly, if there are 3 carbon atoms are there, and in between these 3 carbon chain of 3 carbon atom, if there is a double bond is there, its a name is a propene, and if there is a triple bond is there, its a name is a propyne, right? So for example, 3 carbon chain with the double bond would be called propene, and 3 carbon chain with the triple bond, it would be a propine, right? Propine. Understand, dear student? So if there is a single bond between the carbon chain, it's a name methane, ethane, propane, butane, pentane and hexane, right? One carbon atom methane, two carbon atom ethane, three carbon atom propane, four carbon atom butane, five carbon atom pentane, six carbon atom hexane. But if there is a double bond between the carbon atom, in the single carbon atom it is not possible, so we are starting from the two carbon atom. If the double bond between the two carbon atoms, its name is a ethene. If the double bond between the three carbon atom chain, its name is a propene. If double bond between the four carbon atom chain, right, four carbon chain, it's a butene, right? If the double bond between a five carbon atom, its name is a pentene. If the double bond between the six carbon atom chain, its name is a hexene. Similarly, if triple bond is there, its name is a ethyl, propyne, butane, pentine and hexane, right? So dear student, how the nomenclature of the carbon compounds can be done? Understand, first identify the number of carbon compounds, second identify which functional group is present in the carbon compound and modify the name according to the functional group, either in the prefix or in the suffix, right? And third one is, if the carbon chain is unsaturated or if the double covalent bond or triple covalent bond is present in the carbon chain, its a name is modified, right, like a in or ein. So let us see. So let us see the some functional group of the carbon compound. Nomenclature of the organic compounds. That is the carbon compound. Haloalkyl, right? In the haloalkyl group of the carbon compound, the prefix is the chloro, bromo, hexo, etc. Right? So in the carbon compound of having a three carbon atoms, right, with the alkene group. Alkene group, that means a single covalent bond between each carbon atom, right? So its a name is a chloropropane. If there are four carbon atoms are there, its a name is a chlorobutane. If there is a five carbon atom is there, its a name is a chloropentane, right? Alkene group, that means a single bond between each carbon atom. Similarly, bromopropane, right? If the chain of the three carbon atom, bromopropane. If there are chain of the four carbon atoms, it's a bromobutane. If there are chain of a five carbon atom, it's a bromopentane, right? Similarly, so first group of the organic compound carbon compounds are a haloalkane group. Its a prefix is a chlorobromo, like this, right? If chain of the two carbon atom is that, it's a chloroethane, chlorobromoethane, right? Second group is the alcohol group, right? Alcohol group, we add a suffix "ol", right? So if there is a chain of the three carbon atom and one of the carbon atom are makes a covalent bond with the alcohol group OH, its name is the propanol, ethanol, methanol, ethanol, propanol, butanol, right? Hexanol, like this. Third one is the aldehyde group. The suffix of the aldehyde group is a "al", right? Aldehyde group has a functional group CHO, C double bond O and H, right? So its a name is a propanal, butanal, hexanal, right? Like this. Next one is the ketone group. Its a suffix is a "on", propanon, butanon, hexanon, like this, right? Carboxylic group, oic acid, methanoic acid, ethanoic acid, propanoic acid, butanoic acid, pentanoic acid, hexanoic acid, like this, right? If there is a one carbon atom, it's a methanoic acid. If there is a two carbon atom, it's a ethanoic acid. If there is a three carbon atom, it's a propanoic acid. If there is a 4 carbon atom, it's a butanoic acid. If there is a 5 carbon atom, it's a pentanoic acid, like this, right? And then alkene and alkyne group. Alkene and alkyne group we already discussed in the previous video, right? Its a suffix is a "-ine" and "-ine". If there is a double bond between the any two carbon atoms, its a name is a "-ine", right? Alkene. And if there is a triple bond between the any two carbon atoms, it's an alkyne, right? So ethene, propene, butene, pentene, hexene, like this. And if there is a triple bond, propyne, butane, pentane, like this, right? So dear student, I hope that you understand how the name of the carbon compound can be done, how the nomenclature of the carbon compound can be done. Now dear student, let us see the chemical properties of the carbon compound, right? So chemical properties of the carbon compound, in that first chemical property is the combustion, right? Carbon compounds burn in the oxygen to form a water, carbon dioxide, heat and light, right? So the carbon compounds, if the carbon compounds burn in the presence of the oxygen, it forms a carbon dioxide, water, heat and the light, right? For example, single carbon atom burn in the presence of the oxygen O2, it gives the carbon dioxide CO2 plus heat plus light, right? Similarly, if we take any carbon compound, alkene group, right? Ethane, ethanoic acid, right? Or any carbon compound. So if we take a ethane, CH4, right? The name of the one carbon compound with the 4 hydrogen atom, CH4, its a name is a methane. It burn in the presence of the oxygen O2, it gives the water H2O plus carbon dioxide CO2, heat and light. And balancing this chemical equation, we need to place here 2 and we need to place here 2, right? So methane is burned in the presence of the oxygen. It gives the water, carbon dioxide, heat and light. Similarly, if we take the any carbon compound, right, like a ethane, C2H6, right, like a ethane is burned in the presence of the oxygen, it gives the water, carbon dioxide, heat and light, right? Similarly, if we take the ethanol, C2H5OH, right? That is the name, 2 carbon atom. The name is a ethane. The functional group is a OH present, so its a name is a ethanol, right? So ethanol burn in the presence of the oxygen, right, gives the water, carbon dioxide, heat and light. So dear student, understand first chemical properties of the carbon compound, combustion. When the carbon compound burns in the presence of the oxygen, it gives the water, carbon dioxide, heat and light. We can take the any of these carbon compound which we had discussed previously, right? Alkane, alkene or alkyne, right? Or any functional group, ethanol, methanol, or any, we can take any carbon compound burns in the presence of the oxygen, it gives the water, carbon dioxide, heat and light, right? Second chemical property is the oxidation, right? Carbon compounds like alcohols are oxidized to carboxylic acids on heating with the oxidizing agent like alkyl potassium permanganate KMnO4 or acidic potassium dichromate K2Cr2O7, right? In the presence of the oxidizing agent, the alcohol is converted into oxidized in the form of the carboxylic group. For example, if we take a C2H5OH, C2H5OH, that is the ethanol, are oxidized in the presence of the KMnO4 and heat, or in the presence of the acidic K2Cr2O7 potassium dichromate, right, and it converts into the ethanoic acid, right? So the alcohol group of the carbon compounds are oxidized in the presence of the alkyl KMnO4 potassium permanganate or the acidic potassium dichromate K2CrO7, and it forms the ethanoic acid, or it convert into the carboxylic acid. Similarly, instead of this ethanol, if we take a propanol, it converts into the propanoic acid, right? So when the carbon compounds like alcohol are oxidized to the carboxylic acid by heating in the presence of the oxidizing agent. Which oxidizing agent are used to convert the alcohol to the ethanoic acid? The oxidizing agent is the alkyl KMnO4 or the acidic K2Cr2O7. KMnO4, that is the potassium permanganate, and K2Cr2O7, that is the acidic potassium dichromate, right? So alcohol are oxidized to the carboxylic acid in the presence of the oxidizing agent like alkyl KMnO4 or acidic K2Cr2O7, right? So see here, ethanol, when the ethanol is heated in the presence of the KMnO4, alkyl KMnO4, it converts into the ethanoic acid. Similarly, when the propanol is heated in the presence of the K2Cr2O7, right, it converts into the propanoic acid, right, like this. So this property is called the oxidation property, right? So next chemical property is the additional reduction, right? Addition reaction. Unsaturated hydrocarbon undergoes the addition reaction with the hydrogen in the presence of the nickel or palladium as a catalyst to form a saturated hydrocarbon. Unsaturated hydrocarbon are converted into the saturated hydrocarbon in the presence of the nickel or palladium catalyst, right? Nickel or palladium catalyst. So unsaturated hydrocarbon, what are the unsaturated hydrocarbon? Unsaturated hydrocarbons are ethene, ethyl, propene, propyl. So these unsaturated hydrocarbons are converted into the saturated hydrocarbon like ethane, propane, like this, right? So unsaturated hydrocarbon undergoes the additional reaction with the hydrogen in the presence of the nickel or palladium as a catalyst to form the saturated hydrocarbon. For example, we take the unsaturated hydrocarbon C2H4, that is the ethene, undergoes the additional reaction with the hydrogen plus H2 in the presence of the nickel or palladium catalyst, convert into the alkane group C2H6. It is the ethane. So here the ethene is converted into the ethane, right? For example, if we consider this, for example, if we consider the structure of the ethene, right? So here in the structure of the ethene, there is a double covalent bond between the two carbon atom, right? So this double covalent bond will break and additional hydrogen atom are connected with each carbon atom. So this double covalent bond will break and one hydrogen atom is connected to this carbon atom and one hydrogen atom is connected to this carbon atom in the presence of the nickel or palladium catalyst. So here the ethene undergoes the additional reaction with the hydrogen atom, it forms the ethane, right? Similarly, if we take the propene with the hydrogen atom, it forms the propane, right? So this addition of the hydrogen to the unsaturated hydrocarbon to form a saturated hydrocarbon is called the hydrogenation. Hydrogenation is used to convert the unsaturated oil or fat to the saturated oil and fats, right? So this process of the adding a hydrogen atom to the unsaturated hydrocarbon to form the saturated hydrocarbon is called the hydrogenation, and this hydrogenation is used to convert the unsaturated oil and fat to the saturated oil and fat, right? Understand? And last chemical property is the substitution reaction. What do you mean by the substitution? You know that substitution, that means the removal reaction. So saturated hydrocarbon undergoes the substitution reaction with the halogen to form the substitution products. For example, if we consider the methane undergoes the substitution reaction with the chlorine in the presence of the sunlight to form the substitution products like a chloromethane, right? So here if we considering the methane, CH4 undergoes the substitution reaction with the chlorine in the presence of the sunlight. It forms the chloromethane and produce the HCl, that is the hydrochloric acid. Similarly, hydrochloric acid again react with the Cl2. It forms the CH2, Cl2 plus HCl, CH2, Cl2 plus chlorine Cl2, it forms the CHCl3, right? So one chlorine atom is added to the carbon. Another way, CHCl3 trichloromethane undergoes the substitution reaction with the chlorine atom. It forms the CCl4, right? So here in each reaction, in the first reaction, one hydrogen atom is removed and instead of this one hydrogen atom, chlorine atom is added. All the reaction, right? Cl3Cl, one hydrogen atom is removed and chlorine atom is added. Again one hydrogen atom is removed and chlorine atom is added, right? So that is called the substitution reaction, right? So methane undergoes to substitution reaction to form the chloromethane, dichloromethane, trichloromethane and tetrachloromethane, right? So if the carbon atom are joined with the 4 chlorine atom, it's a tetrachloromethane. So understand this type of the substitution reaction occurs with the hydrocarbon. Methane plus Cl2, it forms the CH3Cl. So from this methane, one hydrogen atom is removed and instead of one hydrogen atom, chlorine atom are added, right? And hydrogen atom and one chlorine atom forms the HCl, right? So this type of the reaction is called the substitution reaction. So dear student, understand all the 4 chemical properties of the hydrocarbon.